Taylor, we're back today to talk about mindset, to talk about trading, to talk about emotions. And I'm always very surprised that, or maybe I'm not surprised, when I ask people questions, I'm like, hey, ask me questions on Twitter. I did the Twitter little Q&A the other day, and I would say 95, maybe 99% of the comments were people asking about emotions. They were like, how do you handle this? How do you do this? You know, like when you're in a drawdown, when you lose, how do you bounce back? Have you found that, like, working with traders over, the last few years, have you found that it's normally like an emotional thing more than anything?
Here's one thing to remember about emotions is we don't take action as humans unless we're feeling an emotion. Like if you think about anything that you do, anything that you're motivated to do, any action that you take or not take, it's usually comes from an emotion. And so, one of the reasons that emotions play such a big part in traders' lives is because, we really hinge our success on our ability to execute a trade plan over and over and over again. There's actions that we need to take as traders. And very often it's the emotions that we have or that are fueling either these actions or these inactions. So almost everything that we can point to, any sort of deficiency that a trader has around executing their process, you can probably link back to the emotion that they're feeling. And conversely, when you look at successful traders, and it's not necessarily that they are able to kind of create better emotions or anything like that. A lot of times they're trading, with certain emotions, but they're able to kind of override those with other emotions as well. So emotions is huge. We have to take action as traders. And in order to do that, we need to create and generate certain kinds of emotions that benefit us. And that just isn't happening all the time in the trading world.
We kind of just talked about this as well before we started this little video here. We're talking about the sizing, right? Like sizing plays a huge issue with trading because it's one thing to trade one contract. It's another thing, okay, like now I'm trading two, but like going from 2 to 5, going from 5 to 10, I mean, it creates a whole like different emotion of like, oh my God, now instead of only risking $500, now I'm risking $5,000. What would you say, like from your experience, like what is there a secret to kind of battling that or like getting, because at the end of the day, if you can profitably trade one contract, you should, like, in theory, be able to trade two contracts, right? Like, is there, like, what's the emotion? Like, how do we battle that emotion? How do I go from trading two contracts to trading 20 contracts, Taylor?
Oh, that's the theory, right? Like, if we're talking theory, then we're talking like, yeah, that's the best case. You should totally be able to overcome that. And it's kind of funny because if you think about trading development, like, we just want to be consistent. So many traders are like, I just want to be consistent. Getting to break even is awesome. Like if you can just get to break even, that's amazing. If you can start to make a little bit of money, that's incredible. And what we don't realize as traders is that that's not the end. Like if you think that once you get to become where you're a consistently profitable, successful trader, and you're like, oh, I made it. Well, there's still more hurdles. There's still more things. There's still this aspect of like, okay, how do I start scaling up? How do I start maximizing my profits, right? And you're always going to face this. When we are doing anything in our lives that requires us to stretch ourselves, any sort of aspirational goal that we're trying to attain, that we're going after, then we're going to create discomfort for ourselves. I mean, it's whether you're trying to improve a relationship or whether you're trying to get into shape or whether you're trying to become more consistent as a trader or size up, you're creating discomfort, right? And so it's this discomfort that we have to learn how to work through. Trading is it is a discipline of discomfort. You're always going to be uncomfortable when you trade. And, it's just one of those things that we can work on that's, part of the mindset work that we can do.
An interesting topic as well, because it's like people always say, I want to trade without emotion, but it's like, let's be honest, we're not robots. So trying to get to that point where it's like you understand the emotions, like you said, like you understand why you're getting this emotion, you understand the emotions that you have. So do you think it's the idea of like, hey, I want to just be a robot and remove all emotions? Or is it more of like, I need to just understand my emotions?
We can resist our emotions. So that's where we kind of push them away. We can react to emotions. Sometimes this gets us into trouble. This is where we toss the keyboard, or we yell or scream or whatever. We're kind of reacting to how we're feeling. But the really healthy thing for us to do is to learn how to process our emotions. And that's a really challenging skill to learn, especially if we haven't, learned that as we've grown up and as we've matured as adults. And it's especially hard when you're trying to trade in a very high emotional kind of environment. Now, one of the things that I've heard out there that you hear quite often is a trader will come to me and say, "Hey man, I want to trade without emotion. Like that's what I need to do. Can you help me just not trade without emotion?" And I kind of chuckle a little bit, because we're human. Like, we can't trade without emotion. Like, it's not. There are certainly some people that can do it, but I would say it's far more frequent for it to be the minimum, like the very small percentage. It's the minority of people. Most people trade with emotion, and what we need to learn how to do is to counteract emotions that don't serve us with emotions that do. And so, if you're feeling, fear, then you want to counteract that emotion. That's what we want to learn as traders. We want to learn the skill to be able to do that, right? Either replace an emotion or to counteract the effects of that, because how we feel is going to lead to actions that we take or inaction. So not taking a trade or not putting a stop loss on, or some of those things, right? So that's kind of where we are in terms of like emotions. Like we need to have emotions. They fuel our actions, but we also want to make sure that we're using the right emotions that serve us the best.
I like that. Because I think so many people like try to preach like, oh, let's get rid of emotion. Let's just trade. But I mean, I've been trading for 7 years now, and I still have emotion. Like, it's impossible to remove it. I'm a human. I still have greed. I still have fear. I still have these certain things. But the secret, at least I think for me, is it's more of just like repetition and experience, and knowing that like, hey, my edge produces this much in terms of like reward, risk. And if I'm going to enter a trade, like I've got to enter that trade knowing that like, hey, I've entered this trade before and I know the potential, and I know it's, my target is there for a reason. So I have to stick to that plan. And that's hard, because a lot of traders ask me that question all the time. They're like, how do I hold my trades longer? And I think we talk about that already in the Market Flow Trader community. It's like, it's not so much about controlling your emotion, but it's way more about the data and the edge, and having a strategy that you're like, hey, I've done this strategy. I've back tested it. I know the actual reward, the edge, the profit factor. So for you working with traders, like how much is it a battle of like emotion versus actually like knowing your strategy has like an actual profit factor, a data set that you're looking at, like, hey, like I've taken this trade 100 times and I know that 90% of the time it goes to my target, and when it doesn't, I get stopped out. That's just part of it. Like, so what would you say to someone who's like, well, it's all my emotion? Is it all emotion, or is it more like you just don't have the back testing?
That's a really great question, because I like how you brought in the understanding part. So in order for us to do anything with our emotions, we first have to understand what we're feeling. That's actually a really hard thing for a lot of traders to do, especially in the moment. Like, most people don't recognize what they're feeling in the moment that they're pressing the button. And so this idea of understanding or creating awareness around what you're feeling, like that's really the first step. And what we don't want to do, we don't want to eliminate all of our emotions, because that's going to take a lot of energy. Like, that's going to take a lot of effort to figure out in your life, how can you be in a state that is, a highly charged state, high stress environment, and not have any emotion. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to look at how can we generate the emotions that serve us the best in trading. And if we could take a look at all the emotions, like if you pulled out a list as an example, like we could probably go through that list and we could say these emotions help us and these emotions do not, like fear, anxiety, greed. That's going to be on the naughty list. And then things like confidence, curiosity, those are going to be on the good list. We can do that. We can recognize that, there are some emotions that are going to serve us better than other emotions. And so the skill set that we want to develop, that we want to build as traders, is the skill set to, one, be aware of what our emotional state is in any given moment, and then to be able to channel the right emotions that are going to serve us to do the actions and to take the action that we need to take. So, feeling confident and curious is way better. Like I love curiosity because it's like, I wonder if I place this trade, what's going to happen, right? That's that whole probabilistic mindset approach that we learned from Mark Douglas as an example, fueled by this curiosity, right? Wondering what's going to happen in your trading and in the next trade, right? That's pretty healthy. That can actually help us to overcome some of these negatives like fear and anxiety and greed that we might be feeling at the same moment. Wait a second, I've got questions for you. So I'm actually going to turn the tables on you. I've got something I want to ask you. So how many trades did you take?
Total number of trades, 11, but Trade of 8 does it kind of weird. It's not really 11. I would say there was like 6 actual trades.
So think about the first trade that you took today. Okay, go back to just the very first trade that you took. How did you feel when you took that trade?
I think I actually talked about it during the live stream. I said during the live stream, I'm like, the NASDAQ was pushing up. The ES was still selling off through the lows. And I'm like, from my experience, this doesn't happen. The NASDAQ's not going to make a new high while the ES is breaking through lows. So I was even like on the live stream, like, guys, like, I don't trust this. I don't like it. I think this is going to sell down. So I ended up getting short when I like drew from that experience and that I guess, experience of knowing that there's a good chance that the ES is going to pull the NASDAQ down.
Okay. So when you press that button, what were you feeling in that moment where you press the button?
To be honest, that definitely there would be the fear. Like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the NASDAQ is going to go higher and I'm just, the ES is going to reverse right here. There was definitely that feeling. I was like, is the ES going to just reverse right here while the NASDAQ, like is the NASDAQ the leader right now or is the ES the leader?
Yeah. So why did you take the trade?
I took the trade because I trusted the fact that we weren't, breaking through the highs on the NASDAQ. I had a resistance level, I had my stop. I kind of just trusted in the process.
Yeah. So you experienced today something that happens a lot to us as humans, but we don't always identify it, which is that you were experiencing really 2 emotions at the same time, right? So when you were thinking, oh, I'm going to take this trade, it might go against me, I'm not sure it's going to work out, right? You were probably feeling a little bit of fear, right? A little bit of fear to kind of take that trade. But you were also feeling confident. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but could I say confident?
Yeah, no, I hope it's confidence.
Yeah, you felt confident because you were kind of looking at this from a process perspective. Like, I've seen this pattern before. I've got my stop loss in place. I know what to do here. I've done this before. And, and I know that my edge gives me a higher probability of winning than losing, right? And so, I want to go back to the question that you asked, right? Which is this, where does this aspect of emotional state play with edge and so forth? Now, if you've heard me talk before, which I talk about this all the time, I would be shocked if you haven't heard me talk about this, but edge, process, and mindset is the path to creating consistency in your trading. And these aren't independent variables. They don't act independently. They work together. So you need edge, you need process, you need mindset, and they help each other. So as an example, when you look at edge, one of the first things I do with traders I work with in the market flow trader community is I say, guys, you have to get your edge in place. You have to have very clear rules, and you have to know the statistics around those rules. You've got to know what the profit factor is. You have to know what your winning percentages are. You have to know that, some setups are going to be, better than other setups, right? And so you need to know this, because in those moments where your brain is saying, no, 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 right? Here's all these red flags. You're feeling fear. You need something to lean on. You need something believable that you can lean on. And the thing that you want to lean on are these edge statistics where you're like, hey, I've got my process in place. My process is going to yield profitability for me because I've proven this over and over and over again. And so when you can do that, then you can do this magical thing where even though you're feeling fear, you can also at the same time feel curiosity or confidence or a feeling of contentment that can override the effects of feeling fear. Because in the end, this is about taking the right actions. And so being able to produce these counteracting emotions that are going to create the actions that you really need, which is pressing that button, putting your stop loss on, not messing with your trade management rules in the middle of a trade, right? Those are the things that are going to result in trading success, right? And that's how we do it. We've got to work together with edge, process, mindset, working together to help us generate these emotions that are going to fuel the best actions for us.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's why it's a triangle, right? It's not just like a pillar of like, hey, master your emotions, master the market. It's the three things combining, you know, having the edge, having the process, and then having the mindset.
Yeah, and it's a really good point that you make. Like, you have to have all three together. You know, you can't just say, hey, my edge is awesome, and therefore I can be a consistently successful trader. That just never works. You've got to have the process piece, and you have to have the mindset component, because inevitably it doesn't matter how much, like, you're an experienced trader and you have this too. Like, you're gonna feel the negative emotions sometimes. You're gonna feel that pull to not take a trade, or to take something that you shouldn't take, or to move, you know, a stop when you shouldn't move it. And, you know, we want to develop that part as well. So all these things work together to create consistent traders.
Perfect. If you guys want to learn more about the Market Flow Trader community, want to learn more about the edge, the process, the mindset, check out the link down below. We got more videos on the way. Thanks for checking in, Taylor, today.